Welcome to the next video of Research Methods, RS-503. We're going to cover Turabian chapters 14 and 15 now. 14, I really don't have that much to say about it because 14 is a, what would you say, a sort of a philosophical chapter. It's only a couple of pages about what research is all about. And it's sort of an exhortation to do good research. So I just want you to read this and maybe reread it to sort of get your mindset toward what research is all about. I want to spend most of the time on this particular video in chapter 15, and so we're going to begin with this little exhortation at the beginning of 15. The first duty of a researcher is to get the facts right. Your second duty is to tell people, your readers, where the facts came from. So that's really, there's two things in research. Get the facts right and let us know where the facts came from. And so to that end, what you must do is to cite all of your sources, and that includes all the facts, all the ideas, all the words that you use in your paper. Everything must be accounted for. So here are reasons for citing your sources. First reason, to give credit. And that really is the bottom line, to give credit where credit is due. It would be morally wrong for you to present your work as your work, and when in reality it belongs to somebody else. There is really no place for that anywhere, much less a theological seminary. Number two, to assure readers about the accuracy of your facts. So if you are citing your sources correctly, the readers of your work will grow in confidence that your work is accurate. But if they find mistakes in your citations, if you have something quoted and it's the wrong page number, or there's something wrong with the citation, that's going to create doubt in the mind of the readers that your research is accurate and detailed and trustworthy. So it's very important to get your citations correctly. Number three, to show readers the research tradition that informs your work. So when you are doing citations, you are citing sources and you're using their data, but you're also, when you're citing them, you're also citing work that they have depended on, because perhaps they have extended or corrected somebody else's work. And so there's a long tradition of research that you are a part of, that you're building upon. And finally, number four, to help readers follow or extend your research. So you present research, the reader may have an idea that takes your research in another direction or to a different level. And so if your work is accurate and cited well, then they can follow your work and perhaps extend it. This last paragraph is important. You must never appear to take credit for work that is not your own. And proper citation guards against the charge of plagiarism. But it also strengthens your argument and assists others who want to build on your work. So what are the situations requiring citations? You should provide a citation in the following situations. Number one, when you quote exact words from a source. That almost goes without saying. if there are quotation marks in your paper, it has to have a footnote and a citation. When you paraphrase ideas that are associated with a specific source, even if you don't quote exact words from it. So if you come across data in a source and you decide not to quote it but put it in your own words, the idea is still someone else's. And so even though there's no quotation marks, you still need to cite where that idea came from. And also, when you use any idea, data, or method attributable to any source you consulted. The bottom line is give credit where credit is due. 15.2.2, what kind of information is required in citations? Well, there's different styles. As I mentioned, there's an author date style that we are not using. We're using the bibliography style. But all sources have one, or all citation methods have one aim in mind, and that is to give readers the information they need to identify and find a source. So if a reader wants to find where your information came from, he needs to have enough information in that footnote to be able to locate it. For most sources, including books, articles, unpublished documents, and other written material in print or in electronic form, that information must answer the following questions. Who wrote the text, who edited it, or who translated it? Sometimes it's all of the above. What data identify the text? This includes the title, the subtitle. If it comes from a journal, you need the title of the journal, the name of the journal, the volume number of the journal, the series number. Any kind of identifying information. If it's a book, you need the edition, if it's not the first edition. Page numbers. Anything that identifies the source of the data. Also, who published the text and when. So the publishing house information. That includes the city and where the publishing house is located, the name of the publishing house, and the date that the book was published, the date the book was published. And then finally, where can the text be found? So if it's a printed source, you can find that easily in a library or a bookstore. But if it's an online source, then part of the information that you supply is the URL. Now, there's going to be a lot of details in the work we're doing in this course. There are proper places to put commas, proper places to put periods. Some things are italicized, others are not. Some things have quotation marks, others are not. Sometimes there's semicolons, sometimes there's colons. There's proper ways to indent. There's proper spacing. There's a lot of little details. And I've heard so many student complaints about the details. There's just too much to keep up with, and it's a lot. I mean, I agree. I agree that it is a lot, but it's important because of what Turabian says here. If you do not get these small matters right, many of your readers will question whether they can trust you on the bigger ones. So if your footnotes are full of typographical errors, if there's a period where there's supposed to be a comma, people notice these things. People who are in the know and people who know how things are supposed to be notice these things. And so if you are sloppy in your citations, then people are going to question the veracity of your research. Sloppy citations in many people's minds mean sloppy research. So 15.3, again, there are two citation styles. We are using the notes bibliography style, or may sometimes just call the bibliography style. So what is the bibliography style? So the way you do the bibliography style is at the end of a sentence or at the end of a quotation or wherever you are doing your citing, you insert a footnote. So if you're using Microsoft Word, which I think probably everybody's going to use, you just insert footnote, and a superscript footnote will be inserted at that point, usually, but not always, at the end of a sentence. And so here is an example of a quotation with a superscript number 1 at the end of that sentence. And then down at the bottom of the page, now we use footnotes. We do not use endnotes. We use footnotes in our school. Then at the bottom of the page, there will be a corresponding number 1 in which you provide all of the relevant data. So in this particular case, this particular example, it's a book. And so there's the author's name, there's the title of the book in italics, and then in parentheses is the publishing information, the city, the name of the publishing house, and the year, and then finally the last thing is the page number from which the quotation came. So that's just like a real basic example, just a simple, straightforward book with a straightforward title and everything. Many times though, sometimes the titles are not so straightforward. There's going to be subtitles and things like that. And then there'll be editions other than first editions to consider and things like that. Now, if you were writing this paper and you cited this person again, Jaron Lanier, the book "You Are Not a Gadget," and you cited that book a second time in the same paper, then at the top of the page here is this example. Lanier, just the last name, not a gadget, in italics. That's an abbreviated title because remember, the full title was "You Are Not a Gadget, a Manifesto." So all you have to do is an abbreviated title and then you put the new page numbers. Now I might add at this point, notice that in the footnote in the text is a superscript, and the way Turabian is presenting the data, the number at the bottom of the page is not a superscript. But that's not how we do it. The footnote at the bottom of the page is also a superscript number. And Microsoft Word will do that automatically. So really you don't have to worry about that. So the way Turabian's presenting it here is not exactly how we do it as far as the superscript number. And then finally, they show how to do a bibliography for this same source, Jaron Lanier, "You Are Not a Gadget." But I'm not gonna stop here at this point and go through that because we're gonna get that a whole lot as we go through the course. Okay, we're gonna skip author date style because we're not doing that, but what if you have an online source? So what kind of information do you need to put in there? So many websites have no identifiable author, publisher, or sponsor. And so they are virtually anonymous. And so here's Turabian's conclusion on that. This source is unlikely to be authoritative or reliable enough to use without serious qualification. So if there is no, if the website is anonymous, I wouldn't even go there. Just skip it. Don't use that source. It's just not a good, reputable source. Another thing to consider is online content can be revised without notice, and there are no standards for indicating revision. So when you are using an online source, you need to keep that in mind, because you may access a source online 1 month, and then 2 months later you go back and the thing is totally different. Online content may be simultaneously available from more than one site, some more reliable than others. And so most online sources are available through a URL, but as Turabian points out, URLs can come and go. So you may cite a source and come back a month later and the website's gone. And so in those type of situations, I would just avoid those as sources. So you got to be really careful when using online sources. In this bottom paragraph, Turabian says, use the most reliable version available. And usually the most reliable version available is the hard copy. If there's no hard copy, then try to find the most reliable website and go with that one. There are 2 categories of online sources. So this first category here is I would call this this would be like the Evangelical Theological Society (ETS) website that I mentioned earlier. That is a professional society. It puts out a hard copy journal, but it backs it up and also posts that journal online. So you can as a member, you can go in there and research, and you can go back as far as they have issues, and that's way back into the early 1900s. So that's a good, reliable online source. And so, but others, like maybe personal websites, social media, you need to be real careful about using those. There are commercial databases available, which are usually accessible through schools, so through university libraries mainly, and we are subscribers to a number of those, really good ones. So when we get to the section on library research, we'll show you how to enter our library and do online research through a number of these commercial databases. Okay, finally, 15.5. This is the last section for this chapter, how to prepare citations. So again, use the most authoritative sources in their most reliable version. If a source is available in multiple versions, always cite the one you actually consulted. And that's really important. You need to cite the one you actually used and not the one that says the same thing. Okay. Third, record all bibliographic information before you take notes. And that's really important too. If you are somewhere doing research, let's say you find a theological library in your town, or maybe an hour away or something, and you're there researching and you take all these notes and everything, and you get home and you did not record any bibliographic information. You don't have the title, you don't have the author, you probably have the page number, but you don't have the publishing information or the year or anything. So you've kind of wasted a trip. So take another hour and go back and get that information. So if you're at a library or something and you are Xeroxing or photographing material, you have got to, if it's a book, you got to go to the front and get that cover page and that copyright page. Make sure you get everything that you need. And then for sure, record the page numbers of every quotation and paraphrase. Next time, in our next video, we will discuss Chapter 16 of Turabian.